Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Manga Man Drew, and I'm here to do my breakdown for My Hero Academia Season 6, Episode 14, titled Hellish Hell. Yes, My Hero Academia is back for another season, or should I say core, for Season 6. And this part of the season is going to be very interesting with what we're going to be getting in this material. So, let's cut to the chase and begin this breakdown for this episode. For starters, this is one of the very few episodes that barely covers 2 chapters of material. First, it covers the entirety of chapters 296, as well as the first 3 pages of 298. And we actually start off the episode with a few added scenes that are not actually in any of the chapters covered in this episode. And the scenes that we get are just added scenes of destruction, as well as the imagery of I am not here on All Might's trophy that we actually would not have seen in the manga until chapter 300 on page 8. And going on this track, we do have some original scenes not seen in the manga, but seen in the anime when it comes to expanding on what Redestro was doing before the raid started proper on his way to the Public Hero Safety Commission's office. And I will say, I really do like this added scene because it adds a little bit more depth to Redestro's character when it comes to his planning, his leadership, and his involvement in what's going to be happening within the next few moments in this episode. As well as we get the slight reveal that this Redestro may not actually be the Redestro that we know during the war. And from here, we get a very great OP that is new for this core of Season 6, and it was done fantastically. I'm not going to get more into the nitty-gritty of the details, which I can do in its own video, but there is a lot of cool stuff in this opening when it comes to the direction, the animation, the music. All of it is done great, and this may be one of My Hero Academia's best OPs in a while. But jumping away from the OP, let's get more into the episode proper, where we do get more expanded scenes of Redestro interacting with the individuals and the head of the Hero Public Safety Commission, and how it's explicitly shown that the Hero Public Safety Commission specifically brought Redestro here just to trap him, as we see a bunch of people with guns coming in and about to charge Redestro. As we cut over to the title page where we hear gunshots and explosions fire, as we cut back over to what is going on with the entire building or the entire floor being destroyed as Redestro is in his stressed out form. As it is revealed to these individuals that at this moment this Redestro is a clone, the entirety of the Hero Public Safety Commission, especially the head chairwoman, is confirmed to be out of commission and dead. And I would also like to add that we do see a fair amount of destruction, but what we also get confirmation of is the death of the chairwoman, which is not necessarily stated in the manga chapter when this was released, but had to be confirmed later on in extras in the actual manga volumes. So it's great that they added this information now to confirm that she is no longer going to be a factor moving on in the story, which is actually very important for this arc in particular that we're about to go into. And from here, a lot of what we get after this is pretty much just flashback and recap from what we saw over the past 13 episodes prior. And even though it's pretty much recap, what makes this recap a little bit more interesting is how it is portrayed. And it's done from the perspective of Deku, who is going to be a major narrator throughout this episode, as if he is reading a report by the Hero Public Safety Commission. And when it comes to this recap, not a lot of new information is added, but there is some information that we didn't know that was added. And that includes the time that it took Mirko to actually go and find Dr. Garaki, which was approximately 3 minutes, as well as the confirmation of how many Nomu actually escaped alongside Tomoe Shigaraki, which was not in the previous episode, but is in this episode during that recap. And jumping way forward after this recap, we do get some added scenes that are in the anime that are not necessarily in the manga. And this new scene is something that I really like because it ties more into the world building and the consistency of My Hero Academia, which is that the information about the students participating in the war and fighting Shigaraki is omitted by the heroes who actually saw it. Because most likely the heroes that we see saw that these kids were fighting, but they specifically left it out of the record because that is just something that would happen in this world. They do not want information about actual students or kids fighting in this battle, getting hurt, and going up against an individual like Tomo Shigaraki and potentially being heavily injured, if not dead. So it makes sense that this is a piece of information that they would leave out of the report because this is something that we have seen in the story ever since the incident with Stain. So it's cool that we got that piece of information, which really, once again, adds to the world building of My Hero Academia. And going from there, we also get some more reused scenes, as well as a new scene of Deku being taken away on a stretcher, as he is remembering his fight and confrontation over One for All with All for One, and how he reiterates the idea of when he saw Tomura, how he looked like he needed saving. So going from that moment, we also will go to another scene where there is a fair amount of added dialogue in the anime that is not found in the manga. Because not only do we get new information and new dialogue, but it's also portraying information in the manga in the anime in the form of a news article. And some pieces of new information in this format include the crimes that Dr. Garaki was being arrested on, which goes from tampering with corpses to more or less compromising the confidentiality of patients in the hospital. And we also get the added information of Gigantomachia being transferred away and being lifted up by 2 helicopters. And what is interesting about this new information is that it seems to contradict information that we're going to learn later on in the story. However, it actually doesn't because of the implications that we get in the anime and the implications that people may have made in the manga. And those implications being where Gigantomachia was kept after the war and what exactly happened to him. And how the manga actually doesn't give any specifics on how he ended up in the state that he was in the manga. So what we got in the anime could be consistent with what we got in the manga, just slightly different and altering. But going into some information that was in the manga that was in the anime in this format was the Mr. Compress being taken to the hospital. That was pretty much it. And going off that, we also got a little bit more new and added information that was not necessarily in the manga, but really adds to the story and to the side of the heroes and what they would do in this situation. This includes the fact that they were able to rescue or contain some of the Nomu, and they took them away to be investigated and autopsied, as well as they took the equipment that was associated with the League of Villains at Jaku Hospital, and they also took it away to also be looked at a little bit more. And that's pretty much it for this part of the episode. And going into the next part is where we get fully and new information that was from the manga, which a lot of what we're going to be getting does have a lot expanded upon in the anime. For instance, there is a fair amount of expansion on the fights at Gunga Mountain Villa when it comes to the fights of Edgeshot versus Redestro, where we get a little bit more of how that fight concludes proper. And the same goes with the fight between Getten as well as Cementos. And we do get a new added way to convey how these individuals were defeated via the idea of them being defeated and then having a sort of mugshot appear across their face to indicate that they have been arrested, which is something very cool and interesting, and I really like that they added this to the anime. And speaking of more additions, we also get more information about what was happening across the country as the raid was going on, and how all across the country, either police and other heroes raided other locations that were associated with the Paranormal Liberation Front and had those people who were associated with the organization arrested. And I really like that they explicitly added this information in these scenes because this is something that was implied in the manga, but we never really saw in the manga itself proper. And this is where the idea of this being a report ends, as Deku ends with the idea that this is all that they really needed to report on, the attack and raids, because that's what the initial goal was to do. And this is where we get more of the expanded scenes of the aftermath of all of this destruction, with the heroes trying to help and save as many lives as possible. And this includes the expansion of a scene of an officer searching for Toga, but instead decides to begin help and rescue and save as many lives as possible. And this is kind of a running theme with this part of the episode, where a lot of the expansions that we see are of heroes such as Uraraka and Koda actively taking part in helping in the rescue and the saving of many lives after Gigantomachia went on his rampage, and a lot of people got hurt and injured and potentially killed. And some of the best moments that we got in this section are from the manga that are expanded upon more, with Uraraka saving the kids, which we get a little bit more of that expanded on, as well as her going to search for a man's husband in a broken building, which is also expanded on a little bit more. But we also get a little bit more of Koda actually taking a fair amount of action using his quirk to direct the location of where certain civilians are by the use of his birds, searching for where they are and reporting it to the other heroes. This is something that isn't in the manga, but it really adds to the character of Koda and how much he has grown when it comes to his heroics to be able to do this to this extent, because he was an individual that really couldn't talk to people because he was extremely shy to the point of being mute. But that isn't even the best scene that we got from heroes saving other people, because one of the best scenes in this episode actually involves Uraraka, and how it involves her trying to save this Kappa underneath the rock as she begins to have a shocked expression on her face looking at a hero as the hero begins to give up and Uraraka is shocked. And what makes this even better is how we get a little bit of silence as all we really hear is the music beginning to swell and all of the people screaming for help, screaming for bloody murder because they need a hero. You hear how much pain these people are in, and you can also see how it's affecting Uraraka in this moment, and it's done to near perfection. So yes, the scene with Uraraka was done extremely well, but it was not the most shocking scene of this entire episode, because we go into probably the most shocking aspect of this episode, which is the death of the heroes, where we get confirmation that Midnight did die after her conversation with Momo, and her death scene is expanded on more. In the manga, it was just pure silence and seeing these characters, seeing these students cry, but in the anime, we actually get to see them cry, but then we get to see other characters begin to speak up, such as Sato and Mineta. As well as during this time, we get confirmation that another hero by the name of Majestic also dies, as it is conveyed to Momo with Tokage, who was also someone who worked under Majestic. So the dialogue in this scene really adds to this moment, even to the fact that we get to explicitly see Momo grasping Midnight's hand, confirming her death as well. So I really like it when the anime expands upon these scenes that are in the manga to this extent, and this was just a very shocking reveal overall that could bring a tear to my eye. And speaking of expansions when it comes to a character's death, we do get a little bit of expansion on what happened with Tomoe Shigaraki and his revival, and how in the anime, this is done through an interrogation of Dr. Garaki confirming that Shigaraki was able to revive himself through his hatred and his want to achieve his goals, and how the electricity that actually shocked him was not enough to revive him. This was information that we knew in the manga, but it's done so in a different way in the anime that I really did enjoy. And something else that I enjoyed is the depiction of certain heroes dying and how it's conveyed in the anime in comparison to the manga. In the manga, it's just a single page where we see the pictures of these characters who have died. But in the anime, we get this sort of transition effect with the heroes popping onto the screen and then fading out into the darkness. And with Midnight, we get to see her full face as it pixelates out of the way, implying her death. And many of the characters that we see in that slide are not necessarily named characters, but some of the named characters that we do see that are confirmed to be dead include the likes of, once again, Midnight, Majestic, Crust, as well as Native, a hero that we were introduced to during the Stain arc. As well as the rest of the heroes are just heroes that we've seen in the background. As well as when it comes to these other heroes, many of them, whether or not they are named or not, are explicitly seen in the background, many of them interacting with characters that we do know. So that scene was done very well in the anime, but we also get more scenes animated extremely well when it comes to how we get to see the people of the world of My Hero Academia beginning to lose faith in the heroes. and that the only ones that seem not to have lost faith are the individuals who had direct contact interactions with the students, such as Shoto as well as Bakugo, during the remedial course arc. And as we are approaching the end of this episode ends with a very massive stinger of All For One inside of Tomura Shigaraki's body, planning to break his old body out of jail, leading into the next episode. So yeah, this is pretty much where the episode ends, and we do get once again a new ED that is very amazing in my opinion. It is very nostalgic and reminds me of a previous OPs that we've had, which I will bring up what these references are potentially in a video where I break down the ending as a whole. So yeah, that is pretty much everything that I want to break down for the episode proper. I also want to bring up a few cutscenes from the anime potentially that is in the manga but is not in the anime. These cutscenes include the heroes actively chasing after All For One inside of Tomura's body along with the 7 Nomu. A few panels when they are talking about the near Haya Nomu and confirming them as such. A panel is cut from the anime of seeing the heroes that are arresting the individuals at Gunga Mountain Villa underground. We also get a cut scene of a flashback of 132 members of the Paranormal Liberation Front escaping in that moment. And finally, the last cut scene is sort of a symbolic moment of Tomura Shigaraki being inside of the darkness before it's revealed that All For One inside of Tomura is going to break out his original body. So those are a few things that from what we know were cut from the anime when it comes to the adaptation of the manga. So yeah, that's pretty much all I really have to say about this breakdown. So let me ask you, what'd you think of the episode? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? What was your favorite part of the episode? Leave your thoughts down in the comments down below. Leave a like on the video if you liked it. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more content like this. And don't forget to hit that subscription button and that notification button to be notified whenever I upload more content like this. Do all that cool jazz, and hopefully I'll be able to catch you in my next video. Goodbye!